What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 41, and today we've got another guest host. We've got Kieron Reed, who's one of our Facebook friends from the Wrestling with Johners community page. Kieron, good evening. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, John?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And of course, we know each other from the Wrestling with Johners Facebook group. And you mentioned on the Facebook group yesterday that you were at Super Strong Style 16. So I thought no better time to get Kieron on the podcast to tell us all about it. So we'll talk more about Super Strong Style 16 and Kieron's love and passion for professional wrestling very soon. But just a bit of a plug so you know where to find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter. Twitter.com/withjohners_pod. And you can also follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/wrestlingwithjohners. And of course, you can hear this podcast on any popular podcast channel, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Anchor, YouTube, Stitcher Radio, pretty much wherever you get your podcast, we are available. And remember, if you're listening on Apple iTunes, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a few comments. And if you do, we will give you a shout out on a future episode of the podcast. But back to Kieron. And once again, thank you so much for coming on the episode this week. I want to find out a little bit about yourself so that our listeners can kind of understand a bit more about you and a bit more about your passion for professional wrestling. We obviously know that you're a big Progress fan. You're going to be telling us all about Super Strong Style 16 very soon. But when did you first come across professional wrestling? Kind of what era was it? And who were some of the big superstars around at the time when you first got involved or kind of fell in love with professional wrestling, Kieron?
So I'd say I first got into wrestling, it would probably be the back end of the Attitude Era.
Okay.
So, and Austin, Triple H, Rock, all of those were all big guys.
Yeah, good time.
The thing that pulled me in the most, I think, was the invasion angle, to be honest.
Okay.
I loved the fact that you didn't know what was going to happen week in, week out.
Yeah.
And it kept me tuned in, watched it every week.
Yeah.
My granddad was a big one that got me into it. I remember my 6th birthday, he brought me a Hulk Hogan DVD.
Nice.
Which went through all of his like old stuff and everything, and that kind of started my love. But obviously, being in the UK, not having Sky at the time, you could only really get like the promo shows and Heat and stuff.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to try and follow it from there. But then, as soon as I got internet access and everything, boom, the love began.
There we go. And like I say, you got into it at the right time. Like I say, whether it's in the middle of the Attitude Era or at the back end of the Attitude Era, fantastic time to fall in love with wrestling. So much good action, so many great wrestlers, so many great gimmicks and angles around that time. And what a fantastic time to come across wrestling. So who are your favourite wrestlers at the moment? Who do you enjoy watching, on the TV, whether it be from WWE, NXT? We know you're a big indie wrestling fan, but who are some of your favourites at the moment, Kieron?
AJ Styles. I've followed his whole career.
Okay.
Stuff in Ring of Honor, New Japan, TNA, the whole lot. He literally lives up to his moniker. He is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Definitely. Any indie stars that you enjoy watching?
So, Will Ospreay, I've actually trained with Will Ospreay is, in real life, an absolute lovely fella.
Yeah.
And he's so knowledgeable, and it's the same Pete as well. I've trained with Pete Dunne, did a 3-hour seminar with him.
Yeah.
Hour and a half of it, he'll sit there and he'll talk to you about how to make yourself popular in the industry.
Yeah.
Tell you about how to get yourself over and everything. His knowledge is insane. And I can't wait for him to start doing bigger things with WWE.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. I'm a little bit hesitant. The day that he does eventually end up on the main roster, I'm more than happy to continue watching him on NXT or NXT UK. But he is going to be a big superstar on WWE on the main roster in the years to come. So you're a bit of a budding wrestler yourself, then, are you, Kieron? So how much training have you had, and have you done any shows, or are you just training at the moment?
I've kind of dibbled and dabbled in it. So work kind of conflicts quite a lot with me actually training. I have done a bit in the past. I did it for a couple of years when I just school, but never had a match or anything. It was literally just training and fitness for me. Then I managed to wangle to get Tuesdays off to go training.
Yeah.
And then after the Pete Dunne seminar, it kind of fizzled out because work started messing me about a bit. So I haven't been training since. That's about a year and a half ago now, nearly 2 years.
Well, you've had a bit of experience between the ropes, and you've had some interesting people stand in front of you to teach one or two things. So yeah, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about Super Strong Style 16. So you were there for all 3 days at Alexander Palace. That's right, that was the location, wasn't it, Kieron? Alexander Palace. Yeah, and so it was a 3-day show, and it was over bank holiday weekend. So it was last Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Yeah. And the first day concentrated on the first round matches for the Super Strong Style 16 tournament. So you say you've been following progress since last year, since 2018, but you've been to quite a few progress shows. You mentioned to me earlier off air that you was at Chapter 86 in Birmingham, which was the show I went to. Tell our listeners a little bit about your kind of knowledge of progress and what other shows you've seen in the flesh before Super Strong Style 16. Tell us a little bit about your progress history.
So my first show I went to was November, which I think was I can't remember the name of it. I think it was Meat Hands and Sausage Fingers.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And it had Trent 7 versus, I think.
Was that the one with Kyle Fletcher, where he faced Kyle Fletcher for the Atlas title, or?
Yeah, so where Kyle Fletcher went up the weight class to actually challenge.
I thought, yeah, that was the one. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
That show was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, it's been a little while, so I can't remember everything. But for me, every show I've been to, the fans make it. Yeah. It's all in chance. I mean, Jim is a great host for the shows. Absolutely brilliant with his interaction with the fans, and I think that's what makes me go back every time. Yeah. Is just unique. Every single show has a difference, and every single show, no matter who they've got on the card, is absolutely brilliant. They always put on stellar matches.
Fantastic. There we go. Well, let's delve into Super Strong Style 16. So day one took place last Saturday, and it had 8 first round matches. And it's got a lot of familiar names there that have wrestled for Progress in the past, a lot of familiar names that we're all aware of on the UK indie scene, or names that might be wrestling under the WWE banner for NXT UK, and one or two maybe less familiar names, and we'll talk about those as we come across their first round matches. And the first match to talk of was Illya Draganov versus Chris Brooks. So this was a pretty exciting match. I've not seen Illya Draganov in the flesh, but obviously we're going to be seeing his NXT UK debut next week. So we'll be talking more about him on the podcast in very, very soon. But this first match, Illya Draganov versus Chris Brooks, what do you think of this one then, Kieron?
So I've seen Illya Draganov a few times, and he is amazing in ring. He's got quite a hard-hitting style.
Yeah.
He's really over with the fans, even though he doesn't talk much. I mean, his Umba Ziba catchphrase is literally chanted as soon as he comes out of that curtain. And I can't wait to see what he does on NXT UK. I'm kind of curious to see what they do with him, to see if they team him up with Walter or not as well, because of the fraction that's going along.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So Illya Draganov went over in this match. He did defeat Chris Brooks via pinfall. What did you think of the match overall? And did the right man win?
The right man did win. I love Chris Brooks. I've seen him many, many times, mainly as a tag team wrestler with CCK.
Yeah.
But I also saw a Rev Pro show against Pac in a singles match. He's got it all. He can wrestle singly and he can wrestle as a tag team. So I honestly think Chris Brooks is going to be someone to look out in the future. Yeah. But for booking wise and the way that the rest of the card went, which we'll get to, I think the right person did win.
Brilliant. Yeah, can't wait to see this one myself. But to move on to match number 2. And we mentioned Kyle Fletcher earlier on from a previous Progress show, but here he is. He goes up against Dagger in the second first round match. Now, I'm not terribly familiar with Dagger. What do you know about Dagger, and what did you think about this match?
So Dagger, I actually have seen a couple of clips of him on AAA when obviously I did my research before I go shows. So when his name was announced, I hopped on YouTube, watched a few of his matches from AAA. He did a little bit in Fletcher Underground, but not a lot. and I remember I used to watch Lucha Underground quite a lot as well.
Yes.
So in those days, I knew that he was good in the ring, and he's another one of those guys that's got the full package. He's quite a big dude, but he can fly around the ring.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff there that Dagger did that I was like, wow. But Kyle Fletcher, again, obviously, as you know, as a Progress fan, I've seen quite a lot of Kyle Fletcher.
Indeed.
And I think he's also another one to look out for in the future. He's another one that's got him with Ozzie Open's amazing. Him with singles matches is amazing. He always seems to put on a great show as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Ozzie Open haven't been called up yet to WWE or maybe NXT UK. But do you reckon that they do have a future in a bigger promotion like WWE, or do you think they'd prefer to stay on the independents?
I think from just as I can get from them, I think it's not a case of whether booked or not to go onto the big show. I think it's a case of they prefer the indie shows.
Fair enough.
Obviously, as you know, with WWE and creative and stuff, you can't do half the stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think for them, for creative reasons, they'd prefer to stay on the indies. Plus, they're both still young as well. They've got time to go there.
Definitely. Oh, most definitely. I think in the short time that I've been watching Kyle Fletcher matches for the last year or so as part of Aussie Open predominantly, but he has had quite a few outstanding singles matches across the UK indie scene and on Progress. I think Kyle Fletcher, you know, how much he's grown in the year that I've noticed him. I think his future is going to be very, very bright and very promising. So, watch out for Kyle Fletcher. But Kyle Fletcher did go over in this match. He did beat Dagger by pinfall. Another fantastic match. We move on to match number 3. Travis Banks versus DJZ. So I've seen DJZ and Travis Banks a few times in the flesh. Both excellent wrestlers. Personally, I think that Travis Banks makes a better heel, and he tends to play the heel in Progress, whereas he tends to play the babyface on NXT UK. But what do you think of this match then, Kieron? Travis Banks versus DJZ.
A brilliant match. Obviously, it's very contrasting styles. Travis Banks is a lot of mat work, a lot of working joints, try and tap out, that sort of character. DJZ obviously high flying, using his speed to his advantage. It made for a very interesting match, and each guy got their high spots in, as you would expect in a good 20-25 minute match. The crowd lived the whole time. It was absolutely brilliant. DJZ did his usual DJ, and then he did the stuff.
Always amusing,
Travis Banks, and he kind of got a kick in the head for it. But again, with Travis going over on that one, again, right decision, as we'll discuss later for further on in the tournament.
Absolutely.
DJZ, not 100% sure if it's right with the rumours him being signed with WWE, but if it is, I think it's the right time for him to go, because I think he needs a bit of a gimmick change. As much as his gimmick is over the fans, he just doesn't seem to be getting the pushes with it.
Yeah, the rumours are correct. I believe he signed to be part of NXT a few months back, and I think he's just finishing off his final indie dates. Expect to see DJZ in an NXT ring fairly soon, so that should be good for him and good for the fans. But we're nearly halfway through the first round. Jordan Devlin versus Lucky Kid is the next match number 4. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I hadn't heard of Lucky Kid ahead of Super Strong Style 16. Now, I am a huge Jordan Devlin fan. I think he's really come leaps and bounds over the last couple of years that I've been watching him. But Lucky Kid, is he another one that you did your research on before you went to Ali Pali? What did you know about him, and what did you think of this match?
I actually saw Lucky Kid live at Breadknife. I watched his qualifier for Super Strong Style 16.
Yeah, that's right. He was on that, but I must have forgotten about that match. Yeah.
He's one of these unique characters. He's high flying and everything, but he's kind of got the psychopathic thing going for him.
Right.
The unpredictability sort of thing. You never know what he's going to do. That's his sort of gimmick. In ring, again, with his high flying skills and everything, he's a brilliant person to watch. Obviously, you knew going into that match it was always going to be Jordan Devlin going over.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan Devlin has been ever so dominant lately, but carry on. Sorry.
I'm a massive Jordan Devlin fan myself. I think he's absolutely amazing. the ring. And again, he's another guy that's got everything. Obviously, he was trained by the first Universal Champion, Finn Balor. And I can honestly see Jordan Devlin possibly being slightly bigger than him in WWE.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people saying exactly the same to you, as yourself, Kieran. And if he doesn't become bigger name value, I know that a lot of people are saying that he's possibly already as good as Finn Balor in the ring. And if he isn't already, he's possibly heading that way. But and I know that they had an outstanding match at NXT UK Takeover Blackpool in January. But I've seen Jordan Devlin in the flesh a couple of times and absolutely love watching him in the ring. Big fan of his in Progress, NXT UK, OTT. But yeah, I think over the last couple of years, he's probably one of the best wrestlers, if not in the UK, possibly in Europe, and certainly heading into a world beater in my books. But Jordan Devlin went over Lucky Kid there, so he progresses through to the next round. Match number 5, we've got another person that's just signed with NXT, Trevor Lee, and he went up against Aerostar. So I know that Trevor Lee, he's a bit of a talker, isn't he? He kind of likes himself on the mic, and did some quite amusing promos over the weekend. Have you seen much of Trevor Lee on the Indies, and what did you think of him here? And he was getting some quite amusing chants going through the crowd. I understand he was very good on the mic. What did you think of Trevor Lee, and what did you think of his match against Aerostar?
I think the way Trevor Lee is as his persona, coming out with the arrogance of obviously being his own. He come out with the NXT jacket on and WWE jacket.
Yeah.
Around the ring, pointing at the logo and pointing at the fans, just trying to rile them up a bit.
Proper heel.
Really well. He's great on the mic. He knows how to make people hate him. So if that's what he's going to go in with in NXT, then he's going to do an amazing job. I have seen some of his indie stuff, obviously TNA, stuff like that.
Sure.
So again, he is another guy with the right people that can put on magic. Aerostar as well, again, AAA. Done a lot of research on him. And there's a lot of stuff Aerostar can do in the ring that people would not think is believable if they're just mainstream watching the WWE stuff. If you've not watched a lot of indie stuff, the stuff that you can see Aerostar do is literally insane.
Wow. Yeah. But Trevor Lee, as you'd kind of expect, went over in this match. By the sounds of it, Aerostar gained a few new fans at Ali Pali over last weekend through this match. But moving on to match number 6 now, David Starr. He was up against Artemis Spencer. So another kind of fairly unfamiliar name in Artemis Spencer. I think a lot of people, especially if you're a fan of indie wrestling like yourself, Kieran, are definitely familiar with David Starr, one of the more popular indie wrestlers out there. But what did you think of this match? And once again, another fairly unfamiliar name of Artemis Spencer. Tell us about this match.
Right, Artemis Spencer. I'm going to start with him because he shocked me. For me, he put on one of the best performances for a guy that I didn't really know a lot about before the show. I tried to do research, but there was not a lot out there about Artemis Spencer. There's a lot more now.
Sure.
Super strong style. But again, he's another one of these guys that he's massively tall. He's built well, but he can fly. And he made a fan out of me over that weekend. David Starr, love David Starr to bits. I think the biggest thing for me with David Starr was this new independent thing that he dropped on Thursday.
Yeah.
Dropped that Thursday, and the amount of people that went over and brought his merch, he sold out by the end of day 1. I think people really get behind David Starr because they believe in what he stands for. His new independent thing is literally he's standing up for independent wrestling. And I think he will only go over more with that. I can say I went straight to him on day 1 and brought £65 worth of his match.
There we go. Can't say any more than that, really. Yeah, definitely.
But he's legit a lovely guy. There was an incident with someone having a signed poster from him that got stolen. And he, by the next day, had already re-signed one and handed it back to the person.
Fantastic. But yes, David Starr went over in this match. But it sounds, as you've just said, Artemis Spencer definitely gained a lot more fans. I think that we'll be seeing a lot more of Artemis Spencer in the future. Future Progress shows and kind of, we'll be looking out for him for sure. Definitely be looking out for him for sure. Match number 7. Now, one of my favourites, Paul Robinson. I just like this guy. He's an absolute psychopath. He's a complete nutter, but he's not bad in the ring also. He's got a bit of a hybrid style, a little bit of a brawler, hardcore style, but he does do some pretty good moves in the ring on occasions. And I think we saw that over the weekend from Paul Robinson. But in this match, he was against Darby Allin. And what did you think of this match? Paul Robinson versus Darby Allin.
Right, so... interesting fact for you. This was the first time Darby Allin ever left North America.
Okay.
So finding his stuff again was kind of hard, but kind of easy to find.
Yeah.
So Darby Allin is another one of these unique characters. He's like Paul Robinson in the sense of he likes to do everything. He reminded me a little bit of a young Jimmy Havoc, to be honest.
Right.
Style in the ring. Obviously with him being signed to AEW as well, so we will be seeing a lot more of him, and he is an amazing talent. Again, he's another one of those guys that shocked me completely, and he's just an all-round good guy. Paul Robinson, absolutely love him. I love him with Will Ospreay, Swords of Essex. I love how he just gets in everyone's faces with his character, and I love how he's a legit absolute psychopath. Which we will later on when we talk about day 3.
Definitely. So Paul Robinson went over in this match, but Paul Robinson progresses to the next round. But as you mentioned, Darby Allin, first time outside of North America, and if you weren't familiar with him before, you definitely are now after his Super Strong Style 16 appearance last weekend. Final first round match. Now, this was one that was getting all of the memes and all the video clips the day after. It was kind of the main event of the evening. Kyle O'Reilly from NXT's Undisputed Era going up against Chris Ridgeway. And I'm assuming you're a massive Kyle O'Reilly fan. You've probably seen a lot of his stuff, whether it be on the Indies or possibly as part of the Undisputed Era. But this was definitely a main event. It had definitely a main event feeling, a main event caliber, and a main event feel about it. What did you think about this one? The pop that Kyle O'Reilly got when he came out, especially when the Undisputed theme came over the speakers. I bet the hair on the back of your neck stood up, didn't it, Kieron?
It did indeed. So I wasn't, because of the match that he got for first round with Chris Ridgeway, wasn't 100% sure how the fans were going to be. Obviously, Ridgeway's a home favourite. He's been on Progress quite a lot. He's challenged Walter for the title and everything like that.
Yeah.
But obviously, with a big name like that, you know he's going to go over. I don't mean in the match, but with the fans, he's going to go over.
Yeah.
Literally, I spent the whole weekend with my mate off his first entrance and listening. He was just repeatedly singing the Shock to the System entrance. Got a little bit annoying, but it was brilliant. The crowd made that match. Obviously, there was dueling chants. I love Kyle O'Reilly, and I honestly think he should get a singles push in NXT.
Yeah.
Because at the minute, he's not being used, and it's quite disappointing. I mean, you've got the whole of Redragon back together with Bobby Fish, and they're not even challenging for tag titles. The only time you've seen Kyle O'Reilly in a tag team is with Roderick Strong, apart from I think it's 2 matches he's done with Fish now.
Yeah.
But again, he's another all-rounder with his martial arts and his submission skills. He could be amazing as a singles wrestler, and I think WWE are missing a massive opportunity with him.
But not only that, Kieran, I think Kyle O'Reilly, I think his gimmick and his mannerisms, his facials, his character development has come on leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. You only have to see him in a backstage promo, even if he's not talking. He's the one that's kind of reacting to everything, and like I say, the facials and his reactions to what everybody else is doing around him. And I think that kind of makes him stand out, to be honest with you. I think he's probably the best character in Undisputed Era. On top of his fantastic wrestling ability, I agree with what you're saying. I think they should do a lot more with Kyle O'Reilly. I think he is pretty much the total package. I think his confidence has come on leaps and bounds. His wrestling ability has always been there, but I think his gimmick and his character is definitely one to watch out for. And I think that if he demonstrates that character even on the main roster, I think he stands a chance of getting over. What do you think?
I agree, 100%. I agree. Because after the match, they did the whole air guitar thing. He pulled Chris Ridgeway back in the ring, and they had an air guitar off, and it was brilliant to see. No one was expecting it, and it just showed a little bit of Kyle O'Reilly's charisma, and it was amazing.
Definitely. So day one, big success, big thumbs up for yourself. What would you say was the best match from day one then, Kieron?
So day one would have to be Kyle O'Reilly, Chris Ridgeway. Was an amazing match to watch the whole way through. Obviously, both of them have the same sort of wrestling style, so it was great to see those sort of two competing against each other, and it was honestly one of the best matches I've ever watched in person.
Fantastic. There we go. So moving on to day two now. So the first match to kick off the day was Aerostar versus Dagger. So we spoke a little bit about Aerostar and Dagger, both unfortunately getting eliminated from Super Strong Style in the first round. But here they are going up against one another. And this must have been a pretty fast-paced, action-packed match to kick off day two. What do you remember from this match?
The biggest thing I remember was the complete change in Dagger. So he played the first day as a face, and then this match with Aerostar, he played the heel, and he played it really well. He changed his wrestling style completely, so he went from being slightly high flying, and he just went to ground and pound, obviously to build up suspension in the match. Obviously, I've watched a couple of their matches in AAA, and they literally just reignited the fire that they have in AAA.
Yeah. Fantastic. A real treat for the fans in attendance, by the sounds of it.
It was, yeah. You saw probably two of the best Mexican wrestlers come over and absolutely put on a blinding match.
Awesome. Can't wait to watch that when it drops on demand. But moving back into the Super Strong Style 16 tournament, we got 4 quarterfinal matches on day 2, and the first of which, well, just on paper, I think it could main event any card for any promotion around the UK. Jordan Devlin versus Carl Fletcher, and this could very well have been a suitable final match, let alone a quarterfinal match. You had a real treat in this one. What was your take on Jordan Devlin versus Carl Fletcher?
This was, for me, match of the tournament. These two put on an absolute blinding show. There was so many false finishes. There was so much action, so much suspense throughout the whole match. It really put into light what sort of work Kyle Fletcher can do as a solo wrestler against a person the caliber of Jordan Devlin. If you think how over Jordan Devlin is, and Kyle Fletcher legit took him to the limit. I think the finish of the match was kind of botched, but I'll let the fans and everyone else who's going to watch it at a later date make their opinion on that. I don't want to spoil too much.
Right.
But from sitting in third row, it looked nasty.
Fair enough. We'll have to look out for that one when it drops on demand. But like I say, on paper, it just looks like a blinding match. And you just told me yourself that it was your favourite match of the tournament for the whole weekend. And moving on to the next quarterfinal match, Illya Draganov versus Trevor Lee. So we can tell that things are getting a little bit more serious now, more competitive in Super Strong Style. These are two big name players in a quarterfinal match. Illya Draganov versus Trevor Lee. Illya Draganov went over in this match, but I'm sure Trevor Lee did his usual heel gimmick on the mic. Tell us a little bit about this one then, Kieron.
I was slightly disappointed about this match. It seemed like they weren't given enough time because of how the first match ended with Trevor Lee Aerostar.
Yeah,
they kind of reversed it on this match with Illya. You could have seen a lot better of a match from them. It was very one-sided and very over quickly.
Okay.
Opinion. So I can't really give much of a review on it. It was kind of nice to see Trevor Lee get his comeuppance from the previous match.
Yeah.
But again, they missed out on something that could have been magical.
There we go. But the next match is a women's four-way match, and it was a qualifier to see who would be going through to the championship match on day 3. And this qualifying match was between Session Moth Martina versus Ginny. So Session Moth Martina actually beat Ginny here. So we're all familiar with Ginny from NXT UK, and Session Moth, another kind of darling of the UK indies. And she's pretty much indie through and through, probably very similar to David Starr, who you mentioned earlier. But Session Moth going over in this match. But in the end, Ginny embraced Martina, seemingly saying farewell to Progress. So give us your rundown of this match, how you think it went, and the kind of final segment with Ginny seemingly saying goodbye to Progress.
So it was nice. I'll start with the end with the whole saying goodbye to Ginny stuff.
Yeah.
It just proves that it doesn't matter what sort of persona you play. If you put your heart and soul into the business that you want to go for, the fans will love you for it no matter what. And you saw that with the way that Ginny went out. The match itself, again, brilliant. Contrast of styles. Obviously, you've got Ginny, who plays very good heel, versus Martina, who's a bit of a party animal as a persona, and it goes over so well. Martina's actually in Australia at the minute, and I have her on Facebook, and she posted a status earlier about it, saying that she can't believe that even the other side of the world, how she's got over with the fans with her gimmick.
Yeah.
So I think at the minute she's getting very taken back by how much she's growing as a superstar, because she's done a show for the company I used to train for. That's when I originally met her.
Yeah.
And she's lovely. She's lovely in real life. And I'm glad to see that she's actually being utilised in the bigger companies of the UK scene, like OTT, Progress, and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more from Martina on Progress.
Yeah, and just to back up what you're saying there, not only has Martina got a fantastic gimmick that's very popular with the fans, but she's very good in the ring as well. And I think she her style, it complements her gimmick, and her gimmick complements her wrestling style, I suppose you could say. So it's almost a perfect package for that individual. But so it looks like Ginny's possibly hanging up her indie career boots and possibly moving for a full-time career with WWE. What would you say?
The way that ended, that match, I would agree. But obviously you don't know how things are going to play out with WWE. They chop and change things all the time. Yeah. I'd love to one day see Ginny back in a Progress room. Obviously it's what she built. She helped build that women's division on Progress. It was nice to see that she passed the torch over to a person like Martina. I don't think it is the last we've seen of Ginny in the indie scene. I think for the time being it is, because of the schedule with NXT UK and potentially her getting called up to NXT if she keeps doing what she's doing and killing it on NXT UK.
Definitely. I think she definitely deserves it. Then we move on to a no disqualification match. So this was Jimmy Havoc, Mark Haskins, Mark Andrews and Ligero versus Chuck Mambo, Drew Parker, Spike Trevay and Bill Evers, otherwise known as the group known as Do Not Resuscitate. Now, this sounds like it was a bit of a wild match. You've obviously got Jimmy Havoc involved and Mark Haskins involved. You know that they like a good brawl, and the same for Do Not Resuscitate. This must have been a pretty wild wrestling match. What can you remember and tell me from this one?
So this match I was third row for. I remember moving my head so much because they were all over the place.
I bet, yeah.
They were all over the whole arena. So it's hard to give you spot calls and stuff. All I can remember is I ended up with Chuck Mambo in my lap after he took a chop from Mark Haskins, and me patting him on the back, asking if he was all right, with the thumbs up. DNR, I believe, are going to be one of the top fractions going into anything they go and do. It's sad to see that they've lost a member with Drew Parker signing in Japan now for, I think it's Noah. So it's going to be hard for them, obviously, to play the whole 4 thing. But I believe they've got plenty of opportunities to recruit another one. There's lots of young up-and-coming talent in there that they can do. I've got a feeling potentially because of the connection with Chuck Mumbo and TK Cooper outside of the business as well. There's potential there for TK to go over there and turn on Trav. Obviously, DNR's whole gimmick is to get rid of the fossils of progress, as they say it.
Yep.
And obviously, Travis is going to be one of those people. He's been there for a very long time. At the end of the match, there was a brilliant heartwarming moment with Eddie Dennis and all of the guys. But again, I won't ruin too much. I'll make you guys watch it on Progress On Demand.
Yeah. But there is a bit of a reunion of sorts between Eddie Dennis, who's out with a torn shoulder, I believe, at the moment, and he does reunite with longtime friend, but also recent bitter enemy in Mark Andrews. Yeah, that was quite an emotional moment for those of you that were there, I understand, and good to see those two kind of back on good terms again, I suppose.
Yes, the crowd went absolutely insane.
I bet. Moving on to the next quarterfinal match. And this was, once again, we mentioned him from day one, Kyle O'Reilly, and he was up against Paul Robinson. So when I saw this in the draw, I thought, wow, it couldn't be any kind of different in terms of two completely contrasting styles, two contrasting personalities. We know that Paul Robinson can definitely mix up in the ring. He's got the ability, but he's known as more of a bit of a hardcore wrestler, a bit of a psychopath, up against the smoother, more technical Kyle O'Reilly. This must have been an interesting match to watch on the night. I mean, was you kind of as hooked to this match as I probably would have been if I was there, in terms of seeing two completely different wrestlers in the ring together?
Yes. So I went into this match thinking it was kind of going to be a squash match. Because obviously, as you said, Kyle O'Reilly is very over in multiple companies and in the industry just in general. Robbo, even though he's been wrestling for years, for most people, he's kind of an unrecognised name if you only stick to mainstream wrestling. But Robbo come out and he shocked me completely in this match. He completely changed his wrestling style and he actually wrestled a smoother game, but he was still hard hitting. He hit one of his old finishes as well, which was like a screw. He got span in the air like 4 times to hit a kick on the back of O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm on early days of Progress, so it reminds me of his old shooting star Paul Robinson stuff, and it was kind of nice to see. It was kind of like a little flashback. And again, for me, that was match of the tournament for Robbo.
I get the feeling that we're going to be talking a bit more about Paul Robinson on day number 3 when we get to it. But this match ended via submission, and Kyle O'Reilly defeated Paul Robinson via submission. Like I say, it obviously took a lot of people by surprise. And good to see that Paul Robinson switched up his style a little bit here. But Kyle O'Reilly advances through to day 3 and the semi-finals. And the final quarter-final match of day 2 was David Starr versus Travis Banks. So tell me a little bit about this one, because it ended in a slightly unique way, setting up a slightly different semi-final match. But I'll let you kind of tell the listeners about this match, David Starr versus Travis Banks.
So Travis Banks came out and played the heel, as he always does, came out with David Starr's new t-shirt, wearing it, and then was mocking him for it. So David Starr came out, started the match very fast, very brawly. Then it, believe it ended in a double count out because they brawled all over the arena. Jim came out, we started the match. It then ended again in a double count out. And then they just kept brawling and brawling and brawling. And as Jim said, he had to do dad voice, demanded that they stopped fighting. And if they did, they'd obviously go on to make the semi-final match a triple threat.
There we go.
And obviously, I kind of have to give a spoiler on that one because obviously we'll be talking about the semi-final match when we hit day 3.
Absolutely.
That kind of had to spoil slightly, so I'm sorry, guys.
No, but yeah, so that ended in a kind of a no contest, and both David Starr and Travis Banks gets moved into into one of the semi-final spots, turning that into a triple threat. But I'm going to jump straight into the main event of day 2 now, if that's okay, Kieron. And that was a much anticipated match. And you had Progress World Champion Walter against Atlas Division Champion Trent Seven, and it was a title unification match. So I know that this has had a long build on social media in the weeks and the months leading up to the super strong style at Ali Pali last weekend. But tell us about this match. Tell us who won, and tell us what your thoughts were at the end of it.
So, I got a little bit to say about this match because I was actually slightly disappointed by it. I honestly thought, with the build-up and the anticipation, that the match would be better. The biggest thing for me is Walter's supposed to be known for his chops, and Trent Sevens were better, just better sounding and better hitting. Yeah. I think the way the match ended was very disappointing as well. I believe it could build up to something in the future. But obviously with Trent doing a lot more with NXT UK now, with Mustache Mountain, I'm not 100% sure when it will happen, but I've got a feeling it will. They will have a rematch, but whether it's for a title belt or not, I do not know. Obviously, we'll get onto that a little bit later on when we go through the final of Super Strong Style. Yeah. But yeah, the crowd made that match, not the actual wrestling in the ring for me. The dueling chants and everything like that. For me, the stuff in the ring, it was basic and it was just big spot stuff. There was nothing special that happened.
So it didn't quite deliver as far as you're concerned then, despite the name value of the two individuals in there. And how did it end in the end, and who went over?
So Walter won by pinfall, but Trent Seven's foot was on the rope, but the ref didn't see it. So It was kind of a finish.
So you think that there's potential there maybe for a rematch because of how it ended? It sounds like you're a little bit disappointed by that match, but can't wait to see that one when that one drops on demand, hopefully this week. But I think we're probably both massive fans of Walter and what he's done on the independent scene and what he's doing currently on NXT UK. He's definitely the man to watch, and he's definitely the man to beat at the moment. So he unifies the world and the Atlas titles here at the end of this match. What do you think is going to happen with the Atlas title? Is it going to stay its own entity, or do you think they're going to move it to one side or possibly create another title? What have you heard so far?
I've not heard anything, but I have theories. I don't think Walter could do double duty. He's cardiovascularly brilliant, but for me, because of his ring style and the amount of talent Progress have got, they like to put on long matches. So for me, Walter would not be able to do 2 matches in one night to defend both belts. So I think maybe they drop the Atlas title, create a new one, and potentially, because National Progression comes up in September, instead of the winner getting a guaranteed title shot, they pick up that title. What that title will be, nobody knows, or even if they're going to do it. But I think they've got an opportunity there to do it.
Yeah, that's a good prediction. I've heard that similar rumours to that, where they might be replacing the Atlas Division title with a new title. But it's interesting times. But at the moment, we've got Walter holding both belts. What happens to the Atlas title, we will have to see. Exciting times. But moving on to day 3, and I'm going to go straight into the first of the semi-final matches. And it was the triple threat match that you alluded to earlier on. David Starr versus Travis Banks versus Illya Draganov. David Starr went over in this match. He actually beat Travis Banks and Illya Draganov. I understand that it was an elimination style match. So tell us about this match. And but like I say, not often. Well, it's the first time we've had a triple threat semi-final at any super strong style tournament. Did you enjoy this match?
I did. I absolutely loved it. So you've got three of the biggest names in independent wrestling in a match together. I think the way they booked it is really well. I think I called it about 3 days before I even got to Super Strong Style. I called the final, and I did say that at some point there would be a dodgy finish, looking at the brackets, to in some way make the semi-final match, because it was either going to be Travis versus Illya or Starr versus Illya. I did say that there'd be a way there for it to become some sort of a triple threat, so that they could still make Illya look strong but get him out of the tournament. And obviously I was right with my prediction. The match itself was brilliant. It was what you would expect from guys like that who have honed their craft wrestling each other. There was a lot of high spots. Again, it's hard for me to talk about because I don't want to ruin too much for the viewers. I don't really want people to kind of be like, oh, well, he's ruined kind of the whole match. It is definitely worth watching. Again, it's one of the matches of the tournament for me. The ending was brilliant, and the pop that David Starr got when we won again was absolutely outstanding. I think majority of the crowd wanted to see David Starr make it to the finals, and they got what they wanted. So, me being one of those people, because I'm a massive David Starr fan. But yeah, it's definitely one to watch.
Superb. And moving on to the next semi-final, a very mouth-watering tie. Two big names in this one, Jordan Devlin versus Kyle O'Reilly. So some might say a slightly surprising ending or a surprising victor in this one, but Jordan Devlin actually went over against Kyle O'Reilly. Obviously, Jordan Devlin is more of a homegrown talent, so I should imagine that the Progress crew are looking to promote stars like Jordan Devlin and David Starr over the established WWE superstar. But this on paper looks an amazing match. I can't wait to watch it myself. Jordan Devlin versus Kyle O'Reilly. What did you think of this one, Kieron?
Again, absolutely outstanding match. You cannot. Obviously, as you said, two big names in WWE, one in NXT, one in NXT, both literally smashing it for their said brand. The match itself, again, obviously don't want to ruin too much for people, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's one of the best matches I've seen Jordan Devlin and Kyle O'Reilly in. If I'm honest, and I've watched a lot of obviously Devlin stuff and Kyle O'Reilly's through the indies, for me, definitely two performances that you'd look back and be like, wow, they can actually do that sort of stuff. For me, the right person went over. Just for wrestling, obviously it being at Progress, Jordan being a home Progress born guy.
Yeah.
Also, I really want to see Devlin and Starr in the final just because of their OTT stuff and the magic they've put on over in Dublin. And I got what I wanted.
There we go. So after that, we got Jimmy Havoc versus Paul Robinson. So we've seen quite a lot of Paul Robinson in the Super Strong Style tournament over the previous 3 days. Here, he's kind of back in familiar territory in a death match against one of his long-time foes, one of his long-time rivals, Jimmy Havoc. Was publicised as being Jimmy Havoc's final match in Progress. A lot of people are saying this is possibly Jimmy Havoc's best death match ever, or possibly the best death match that Progress have ever put on. A lot of blood in this match, Kieron. What do you remember for this one? And quite an emotional ending with the way that Jimmy said goodbye to the Progress fans. But the death match itself, tell us about it.
Honestly, I've never been at a death match live before in my life. Obviously, did a lot of looking online with the stuff and the sort of stuff you can expect. If you've got a weak stomach, fast forward the death match. It is one of the most brutal matches I've ever watched. There's a lot of high spots. There's a lot of light tubes. And as you previously said, a lot of blood. Obviously, Robbo went over in this. Again, don't really want to ruin too much, but it's definitely worth a watch for people who think that they can handle the amount of blood. But yeah, definitely watch it, and I'd agree with people saying that it is one of the best death matches ever produced by anyone. With the ending as well, so with the tribute to Jimmy Havoc with Jim Smallman, again, watch it. If you've watched a lot of Progress stuff with Jimmy Havoc, you will well up. It's a very, very emotional moment for a lot of the fans there as well. And everybody got up to show their appreciation to Jimmy. And if he does watch this, I wish him all the best in AEW.
Yeah, definitely. But by all accounts, Jimmy Havoc got rushed to hospital directly after that match. So he was obviously kind of injured to the point where just patching him up behind the scenes wasn't going to do it for him on this occasion. Yeah, another match that you're going to have to kind of catch on demand when it drops fairly soon. Moving on to the Progress Tag Titles, Ozzie Open, and that's Mark Davis and Carl Fletcher versus Aerostar and Dagger. So Ozzie Open actually won this match via pinfall. But what I want to know from yourself is a little bit about what you thought and what you enjoyed from this match. And then there was a bit of an interesting angle that happened after this match involving the 198. So I'll let you tell the listeners the rest.
So, right, Ozzie Open versus Aerostar and Dagger. It was what you'd expect from a tag team match with those two teams. Obviously, Aerostar being the high flyer for their team and then Dagger being the powerhouse. And it works the opposite way with Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis. Match itself full of a lot of high spots. Obviously, you were expecting Ozzie Open to win, which they did. Obviously, their first title defence after beating Swords of Essex for it. The ending, yes, let's talk about that. So, after the match, Flash Morgan Webster comes out and hits the senton onto Mark Davis. White Ball come out. They beat up Ozzie Open and then leave with their belts.
So they just steal the tag titles. They haven't officially won them in a match. They've just walked away with them. So that's obviously setting up a future match involving the 198 and Ozzie Open to try to not only seek redemption, but to get their belts back. Yeah, an interesting little angle there. And a lot of you have probably seen the pictures online of Flash Morgan and the Wild Boar hanging on to them tag titles. And if you weren't at Super Strong Style, probably wondering why they had the belts in their hand at all. But right, we're on to the kind of semi-final of the night 3, and it was for the Progress Women's title. Now, Jordynne Grace is obviously the Progress Women's champion. She's not defended the Progress Women's championship on a Progress show since winning the championship, and I think she beat Ginny for the championship back in January, I understand. Is that correct? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I was there at the show. Yeah,
it was Ginny, and but she has defended the championship on indie shows around the United States, but not. She hasn't wrestled back in the UK since she won the title first time around in January. And here she is going up against Session Moth Martina. Obviously, Martina won a qualifying match on day 2. Millie McKenzie's in this match as well, and Nina Samuels. So Jordynne Grace won this match, but she turned heel on the fans. The beloved Jordynne Grace turning heel, and she actually made a good showing for herself in this match. I understand she called the fans marks and really ripped into the fans. Yeah, I understand that this was also a very good match. So tell us a little bit about this four-way match then, Kieron.
So, four-way match was absolutely amazing in itself. You saw the best of all 4 females in the match. Jordynne Grace's heel turn, I believe it was kind of about time. The fans had kind of turned on her, obviously with her not defending the actual belt in the UK.
Yeah.
Or Progress. So she picked up on the thing that most people had picked up over the weekend, which was the spelling mistake on the poster and on the T-shirts of her name. I think that got the biggest kind of cheer from the fans because she kind of called bullshit.
Yeah.
But for me, Jordynne Grace is definitely still going to be one to watch in the future. But for me, the shock one in that was Millie McKenzie. She's a young girl. She's athletically phenomenal. and I can't wait to see a lot more of her in the future. For me, the right person went over. Obviously, you don't really want your champ to lose their first title defense on your actual show.
Yeah.
But they could have had it ended in many different ways. I mean, they could have had one of the other three girls pick up the strap without pinning Jordan and then building up for something for their big show, which is in September. But obviously, it's one of those things where booking's done the way booking's done. I think fans were shocked by the finish because it was kind of a move that's not her finisher, but then got the pin. But again, it's definitely one to watch because you saw a lot from.
Yeah, it sounded like a really good match and another one to watch on demand. Now on to the climax of Super Strong Style 16, day 3, and it's the final match that a lot of people predicted going into it. David Starr versus Jordan Devlin. So this was the climax of your 3 days over at Ali Pali. Tell us about this amazing final then, Kieron.
So, as you said, it's the ones that the fans all wanted. It's the one that everyone was looking forward to. The majority of the day was quiet until this point. This match, the whole match, it was just dueling chants. All of the whole match. It was a good 30-minute match, and the fans were just going the whole time. In the ring, obviously, Jordan was selling a previous injury to his knee, which he technically had sustained through the match with Kyle O'Reilly due to the knee bar finish, knee bar submission. It's one of the most technical matches you'll ever watch, and it's definitely worth watching. Obviously, I know you've posted about the winner on your page.
I have.
And so, obviously, people that follow your Facebook page, your Twitter and everything will know who won. For me, with the way that he's coming up at the minute, with his promos, with his in-ring work, with his interaction just with fans via Twitter and everything, they made the right choice in the person who won. Biggest thing for me was after the match when David Starr got the microphone and he explained the meaning of his independent t-shirt, which is obviously what we've spoke about earlier with the merch of his sales.
Yeah.
He just reiterated what everybody thought the independent thing was, and then called out Walter because he did go on Twitter at the beginning of Super Strong Style saying if he won, he was going to call out Walter at the end of the night. Called Walter out and pretty much called him a part-time champ and that had already left to go to another country, but then promised us all that he'd see him soon.
There we go. And that's
the big show in September.
And that's going to be an amazing match, real mouth-watering time. I know that David Starr and Walter, they've had a bit of a feud in the past for WXW, and looks like we're going to see a lot of it as Progress fans in the coming weeks and months. That in itself is going to be a match to main event any card for any promotion around the world. But obviously David Starr is going to be the massive fan favourite in that match. And let's see if David Starr can combat the big ring general Walter. But thank you very much for your kind of coverage there of Super Strong Style. Just to kind of cap off, your enjoyment of the 3 days, what will be your lasting memories, would you say, from Alexander Palace and Super Strong Style weekend?
So for me, it's if you've never been to like a live show like that before over a 3-day period, you'll be shocked how friendly the fans are. Secondly, you would be surprised how much stamina these guys have got to put on outstanding matches across all 3 days. There was a couple of matches that you missed out that are on the card. Obviously, we not got a lot of time to cover those, but there's a 6-man tag match and the Champ Scrambo. So you've got the 6-man tag, which is on day 2, and the Scrambo match / Wasteman Challenge with Roy Johnson on the beginning of day 3. they are both worth a watch, especially if you're a Kid Lycos fan with this Wasteman Challenge. Watch it, you'll find out why. It's brilliant. But for me, just for the sheer fact that they put on an amazing show the whole weekend, for the whole 3 days. If you've never been to a live show, you'd instantly fall in love with wrestling just going for those 3 days.
There we go. So you heard from the man himself. He was there all 3 days. But thank you once again for your review of Super Strong Style. But I'll tell you what, we're gonna keep you along for the ride as we talk about NXT UK and this week's NXT. So you've seen both shows, Kieron, so you can help me along for the ride here. NXT UK, and it was the 9th of May show last night. It aired on the WWE Network. And this week's episode starts with a piece of camera from Sid Scala, the deputy or the assistant to the general manager, Johnny Saint, of course. And he said that in 4 weeks' time, there will be a number one contenders match to see who faces the WWE UK champion, Walter, or possibly Pete Dunne. There's going to be 8 NXT superstars who have been chosen to take part in this tournament to see who will be named the number one contender. And I believe that they're leading to a kind of a 4-way match in 4 weeks' time. And the winner of that 4-way will be the new number one contender. But we're going to be seeing the first of the matches this evening. I'm guessing you're obviously a fan of NXT UK. Who are some of your favourite characters from the NXT UK brand? Who do you like watching on a week-to-week basis?
So obviously, as we've spoke previously, Jordan Devlin, definitely one to watch. Tyler Bate as well. I think he's one to watch. It's kind of a shame for me, he got his big push, and then because he got tattooed, WWE are kind of holding him back slightly. Another one that I like, which people might be shocked about, is Wild Boar.
Yeah.
For me, just because of his size and what he does in the ring, he's an outstanding talent.
Yeah.
I wish he'd get booked better than what he is being booked, but obviously only time will tell. For me, NXT UK is a brand that is amazing for British wrestling. It just proves how much British wrestling has come along in the last few years. And it's finally nice to see that it's actually being acknowledged on a worldwide basis.
Definitely. There was obviously been a lot of criticism when NXT UK was coming onto our TV screens about it possibly being a bit of a detriment to the UK indie scene, with WWE snapping up a lot of UK talent to exclusive contracts. Do you think it's done any harm to the UK indie scene? Like I say, NXT UK is obviously very popular with the fans out there, and it's done a lot of good for the talent that's involved. There are still promotions that some of the WWE signed talent can still work for, like Progress, for example. But do you think it's kind of done a bit of a disservice to the UK indie scene, or do you think that things are no different, or possibly even better for the additional exposure that UK talent are getting on a worldwide stage like WWE? What would you say about that?
I think it's great for the British talent that have put their bodies on the line week in and week out, for guys like us to actually be noticed on a worldwide scale. Yeah. I can understand where people are coming from with like only certain wrestling promotions being able to show some of the talent, but again, it's down to the wrestler. They can't be forced to sign the contract. If they feel like it's the right move for them, then they'll take it. But on a side note to that, AEW are doing the same. So because obviously AEW is based in America, there's a lot of stars that are going over that are gonna stop wrestling for UK promotions, like Kip Saban, who's already said that he'll still appear at IPW, but it'll depend on when his AEW matches and stuff are. Yeah. And Jimmy Havoc. Jimmy Havoc's completely leaving the British indie scene and just focusing his time on America. So it works both ways. Everyone thinks AEW is going to be amazing, so why is it any different for WWE?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, like I say, a lot of people were quite critical of WWE in the way that they were signing, getting people to sign to these exclusive contracts. But yeah, you've just kind of turned it on its head there by saying AEW are doing exactly the same thing. So fantastic. Have you attended any NXT UK tapings yet, Kieron, or do you plan to in the future?
I haven't yet. Me and my mate were trying to get tickets for Takeover, but unfortunately they'd sold out by the time we got online to get them. I will probably go to one in the future, but at the minute, my main focus, to be honest, is on more of the indie stuff. So Progress, AEW, not AEW, WP, IPW.
Yeah.
We've also got, because where I live is in Milton Keynes, so IPW come over once a month. Obviously, I travel up to London to watch Progress once a month. And then we've got a show in June, which is with Pro Wrestling Clash, which not a lot of people know about, but they've got some big guys on there when they come down here in June.
Fantastic. Well, let's move on to the first match of this week's NXT UK, and it was Moustache Mountain versus one of your favourites, Wild Boar and Primate, otherwise known as The Hunt. Jay Melrose, otherwise known as The Primate, and Mike Hitchman are veterans of the UK indie scene, but have only paired together in the last few months on NXT UK, and I think they make a pretty decent tag team on NXT UK. But Seven here, Trent Seven gets an early 2 count after a low blow and a DDT from Primate. Trent Seven follows this up with a low pay, but Wild Boar and Primate soon regain control. There's an assisted senton with Primate throwing his partner onto Trent Seven, and they get a 2 count for their troubles there. Tyler Bate finally receives the hot tag, where he's able to demonstrate his power and his agility. Bate gets a 2 count from a running shooting star press, and there's a great double team here from the Hunt, which gains another 2 count on the former NXT tag champs Moustache Mountain, of course. Despite the strong competition from Wild Boar and Primate, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven were able to put an end to the match with their slingshot clothesline dragon suplex combo for an impressive win in this very entertaining opener. So what were your thoughts on this match then, Kieron?
So for me, there's a lot of high spots in there. There's a couple of moves in there that I've not seen before. Obviously, I don't know if your listeners have watched any of the shows yet, or if they want your review before they go and watch it. Mm-hmm. For me, just the innovation between Primate and Mike Hitchman, there's a couple of spots in there where I'm like, oh wow. For me, it's definitely worth a watch. Obviously, for me, because of Mike Hitchman.
Yeah.
Just in general for the actual match as well, it's a legit match. Obviously, they put Moustache Mountain over forward. They're a pillar of NXT UK with Pete Dunne, so that's kind of a given. But yeah, definitely give it a watch. You might be surprised at how well Jay Melrose and Mike Hitchman team up together.
Yeah, no, it was a really entertaining opener. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and like you say, the Hunt, the tag team of the Hunt, definitely put in a strong opposition there to Moustache Mountain. And then the cameras go backstage to see an injured Amir Jordan being helped back to the locker room by his partner Kenny Williams, appearing to have been attacked by a mystery assailant. I'm sure we'll hear more about that a bit later on. Then we get another really good match: Joe Coffey versus Flash Morgan Webster, and this is the first of the number one contenders tournament matches to see who goes through to that fatal 4-way. Joe Coffey, definitely the hometown boy here, with it being part of the Glasgow tapings from a couple of weekends ago. We've seen more of Morgan Webster in tag team matches of late, in his partnership with Mark Andrews on NXT UK, or alongside Mike Hitchman, better known as the 198 in Progress and across the indie scene, of course. This was a really fun match, pretty hard hitting action, with Flash Morgan trying to use his speed and agility to combat Joe Coffey's power. But Joe Coffey was in the end just too powerful for Webster, finishing the match with his driving headbutt, sending Webster hard into the corner before his brutal best for the bells lariat and the 1-2-3. We then get a heated promo from all three members of Gallus in the ring after the match, with Wolfgang calling out Dave Mastiff and Joe Coffey staking his claim on the number one contendership, with him, of course, progressing through to the fatal 4-way, having just beaten Flash Morgan. However, there'll be other matches in store ahead before any such title match for Coffey, with the winner of each of these qualifying matches getting included into that fatal 4-way, as I mentioned. That's taking place in 4 weeks' time. So then there's a little bit of a kind of a promo getting us ready for Walter versus Pete Dunne 2, which is going to be taking place in 2 weeks' time. Now, we all saw their fantastic match at TakeOver New York, part of WrestleMania weekend last month. Now, I'm sure you were a massive fan of Pete Dunne and a massive fan of that match at TakeOver, but are you looking forward to this rematch being billed as Walter versus Pete Dunne 2, which is taking place in 2 weeks' time, Kieron?
I have indeed. Obviously, everyone's probably watched it now. Walter Pete done one. Legit one of probably most of the hard-hitting matches I've ever seen.
Hell of a match.
It was an absolute brilliant match. Unfortunately, obviously, they got kind of outshined a bit by Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano. Yeah. But what you kind of expect, best 2 out of 3 falls match going into that. But for me, that was the second match of the night. So they outdid Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle for me.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to the Morgan and Joe Kofi match.
Yeah.
Joe Kofi, I've watched a couple of times live, and he's legit one of the biggest dudes I've ever met in my life.
He's pretty stacked, isn't he? Yeah.
He's athletically amazing as well. His ring work has come on amazingly since I've last seen him live in person, and his mic work is absolutely phenomenal now. I'm expecting big things from Joe Kofi. Obviously, Walter's probably going to go over in Walter Pete too, and I'd like to see Joe Kofi win the Fatal 4-Way. I'd like to see Joe Kofi versus Walter.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a match if it happens. We then see another video package featuring Illya Draganov, one of our favourites from Progress Super Strong Style, of course, and he'll be debuting on NXT UK next week. So that will be definitely something to tune in and watch on next week's episode. Then we get to our next match of the night. Nina Samuels versus Casey Owens. So now I believe that this is the first time that we've seen Casey Owens in an NXT UK ring. Plenty of loud "Let's go Casey" chants from the fans in Glasgow. Owens makes a plucky comeback after a dominant start from Nina Samuels. Samuels did an impressive cartwheel across the top rope before putting her opponent away after only 3 minutes in this match with a Nina Garosh finisher. But I think Nina Samuels is definitely making a bit of a name for herself. And she seems to be putting together a collection of wins here. But nice to see Casey Owens get a little bit of a tryout here on NXT UK, and she was definitely popular with the fans. Nina gave us a bit of an in-ring promo after the match. Shooting on the NXT Women's Champion Toni Storm. Nina said that Toni didn't think twice about leaving a single mother and sister to come over to the UK to live out her dream. Nina sends out a challenge, of course, to the NXT Women's Champion, which will be a tasty little match. And I think that we're probably going to see that in a future episode of NXT UK. I think that's part of the Glasgow tapings. But what's your thoughts on Nina Samuels, and what's your thoughts on the very kind of fairly quick match here, Kieron?
I'm slightly disappointed. As you know, we've seen this match before. It was at Birmingham with a different outcome as part of a 6-person tag match. With Casey obviously pinning Nina, which led to a previous match going into Super Strong Style. I think if they had more time, they could have put on one of the better Diva matches that you would have seen on NXT UK. Obviously, I've seen Nina a few times with Progress. I don't know what it is, and this is just my personal opinion. People can not like me for it. I don't mind. I'm not a massive fan of Nina Samuels.
Not everybody is. Not everybody is.
I'm not 100% sure what it is. There's just something about her I don't like, and I can't put my finger on it, and I think that's what annoys me the most about it. If people ask me why, I can't give a definitive answer. There's just something I don't like about her. But again, obviously, she's one of our indie people. She's making an absolute killing for it, and she's getting where she deserves. So I'll give her a dues for that. But for me, that match was slightly disappointing. I think they should have had longer.
Fair enough. But I think Nina's character is definitely getting over, and it's good to see they're doing something with her on TV on a weekly basis. We then see a backstage promo from Dave Mastiff, who responds to the challenge sent out by Wolfgang earlier on in the show, and it looks like we'll see Wolfgang and the Bomber go at it in a fatal four-way qualifying match next week on NXT UK, so that'll be one to watch. Kaylee Ray then jumps in for her promo to say that she isn't here to wait, she's here to pick her moment and to make sure that nobody forgets the name Kaylee Ray ever again. So Kaylee Ray, another fantastic wrestler that we've been introduced to on the NXT UK roster over the last few weeks. Good to see her on the NXT UK brand. It looks like she's making a bit of a name for herself and another future contender to Tony Storm's title, quite possibly. We then see a graphic showing us that we'll see Ligero take on the Irish ace, Jordan Devlin, in another qualifying match for the Fatal 4-Way number one contenders match on next week's NXT UK. So another match being advertised a week in advance. Ligero versus Jordan Devlin will take place next week. Then we jump on to the main event of this week's NXT UK. Really good match, very competitive match between the grizzled young veterans and versus Kenny Williams and not his usual partner, Amir Jordan. Of course, we saw the segment earlier on in the show where he got carried back to the locker room after supposedly being attacked. But Kenny Williams is being paired up here with Noam Dar. Now, the last time we saw Noam Dar, he was being stretchered away from the ring after his match with Mark Andrews, where Noam Dar appeared to suffer a bit of a knee injury. But it's good to see that he's made a bit of a comeback here. And so Noam Dar teaming up with Kenny Williams here. So have you seen much of these four individuals? Obviously, you've got Zach Gibson and Drake, Kenny Williams and Noam Dar. What do you think about these two teams going into the match then, Kieron?
So, grizzly young veterans, obviously, with watching Progress on Demand, you see a bit of those in Progress.
You do, yeah.
Two of those literally together, they're innovating tag team wrestling all the time. You see a bit of it in this match. Noam Dar, obviously, again, as I've previously stated, I'm going through the chapters of Progress. He's on there quite a lot. And Kenny Williams, I'd not heard a lot about before NXT UK. So Kenny Williams is one of the guys that's been a surprise for me out of the NXT lot. Although majority of the time he's on the losing end of his matches, he still puts on a really good show. So him and Noam Dar teaming up together was really good. I think because of their personal connection outside of the ring as well, I think that helped them quite a lot in this match. So for me, again, if they can keep Noam Dar and Kenny Williams together, I think they'd make a better tag team than Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan, just my personal opinion. But those two teams together in that match, they made fire, and it was definitely worth watching.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with everything you said there. It's a hell of a good match. Lots of back and forth action, some really cool spots. But the match did end when Gibson delivered his Helter Skelter, followed by James Drake's 450 splash for the pinfall victory for the NXT UK Tag Team Champions. And they retained their titles over Williams and Noam Dar. A really good match. Definitely deserved to go on last in this episode of NXT UK. Fantastic main event. And like you say, deserved champions. The grizzled young veterans, as you quite rightly mentioned, making a wave on the tag team scene. And I think with Zach Gibson's excellent promo ability and James Drake definitely coming along, making a bit of a name for himself as an excellent wrestler alongside Zach Gibson. I think that the tag titles are in safe hands for the meantime. But who do you see as possible number one contenders to the grizzled young veterans NXT UK tag titles in the future? Any teams that stand out for you? Any teams that you're a fan of besides these two teams that we've seen tonight?
So the hunt for me, if they can put it together and get actual wins, I reckon they'd put on a good match of those two. Mustache Mountain are obviously the obvious choice. Probably be Mustache Mountain for Mustache Mountain versus Grizzly Young Veterans 2 for me.
No, sounds like a plan. Definitely be up for that match myself. But a really good episode of NXT UK this week. And finally, we're going to talk about this week's NXT. I think the climax of NXT, we're building towards the main event, which of course is going to be Adam Cole versus Matt Riddle, and we'll talk more about that a bit later on. But the first match of this week's NXT was Mia Yim versus Bianca Belair. So two very, very talented wrestlers from the women's division in NXT in this match. It's a very fast-paced match with several close near falls. Belair managed to reverse a guillotine into a snap suplex, which was quite an impressive spot. Belair went for a running splash, only for Mia to bring up her knees and to block that attack from Belair. Mia then hits Belair with a rolling senton in the corner. Bianca goes for a pinning attempt, but grabbing the ropes for a little leverage, which was broken up by the referee. Mia Yim is able to reverse into a roll-up of her own, only for a 2 count. However, Belair rolls it back into a pinning attempt, pinning Mia's shoulders to the mat, but this time getting a little extra leverage by wrapping her braid or her hair around the middle rope. This time not spotted by the referee and managing to get the 3 count from the assist of the hair, of all things. It's a bit of a fun match. We should take on this opening encounter on this week's NXT then, Kieron.
So I've watched your podcast before. You've spoken about Bianca Belair being one of a legit athlete and a legit person that will probably end up on the main roster and will be a huge star in the company. Yep. I think this match was brilliant because it made Mia Yim look strong as well, even though everyone knew she was going to lose on the build-up in. I think the two bounce off each other really well. And it just proves that obviously Mia Yim's worked a lot in the indies to get to where she is now. So again, it's like Nina Samuels. It's nice to actually see it paying off for somebody. Yeah. I think we'll see big things from both of those two. I would actually like to see those two as a team at some point and potentially go for the tag titles.
Yeah, quite interesting, yeah.
I just think those two together as a tag team would be insane.
There we go. We then see a clip backstage of the War Raiders getting attacked by the Forgotten Sons, no doubt setting up a match between these two teams for the NXT Tag Team Gold on a coming episode of NXT. We then learn that the War Raiders will be on the show next week to address the future, the NXT future and the future for the NXT tag titles. So no doubt some big news there from the War Raiders. We see backstage footage of Shayna Baszler helping to train her horsewomen teammates, Shafir and Duke at the PC, when we see Io Shirai come into the ring and attack Shayna from behind, cementing her claim on the #1 contender spot. So that'll be a hell of a match when that happens, probably at the next takeover, which is in June. I think they're calling it Takeover 25 because it's the 25th NXT takeover, of course, and that'll be a hell of a match for the NXT Women's Championship. Our next match, however, is Raul Mendoza versus Riddick Moss. So this is the first time we've seen Riddick Moss for a while. He's been out with an injury for several months. However, looking absolutely amazing here. Not sure what his gimmick is, to be honest with you. What do you think his gimmick was trying to portray here, Riddick Moss? He definitely looked good. Could you identify his gimmick from this match or from this clip?
So if you listen to the commentary, they did say something about how he was supposed to be out longer and that he didn't listen to doctors and he did his own regimen and that quicker. So I think if you listen to the rest of the match as well, there's a lot of him going, I don't go by your count, I go by my count. So I think he's going to be playing on the fact that he's sorted his own sort of workout regimen, I guess, like Simon Dean used to do.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Mendoza was impressive as always, as you would expect, with his high-flying and quick pace. But the returning Moss looked very impressive, even managing to curl around Mendoza like some dumbbells, like some weights, 3 times before throwing him across the ring. However, Mendoza did pull off the surprise victory, getting the pinfall from an impressive corkscrew splash or a corkscrew maneuver for the 1-2-3. And I think nobody was expecting to see the returning Riddick Moss lose in his first match, but a really good and surprising and a popular win for Raul Mendoza. But let's move on to the match that we're all here for, the main event, Matt Riddle versus Adam Cole. So this is a bit of a dream match, to be honest with you. I'm sure that we followed these two individuals on the indies. Happy to see them both doing very well for NXT. This is a bit of a dream match, as I said, and there was a bit of a small preview of these two when they were in the #1 contenders match ahead of TakeOver New York, of course, where there was that fatal 5-way match, which also involved Velveteen Dream, Ricochet and Aleister Black to see who would go on to face Johnny Gargano. And Adam Cole, of course, did win this match, but there was a little bit of an exchange between Matt Riddle and Adam Cole. But however, we've not seen him in a singles match until today. Riddle did dominate in the early going, demonstrating his strength with 3 back-to-back suplexes. Cole makes a comeback with a flurry of forearms in the corner before executing a brutal-looking neck breaker on Matt Riddle. Cole starts to mock Riddle, which only fired up the King of Bros even more, causing him to nail a German suplex, followed by 2 running forearms, an exploder suplex, a Broton, and a penalty kick, but was only able to get a 2 count from that exchange of moves. Riddle got another 2 count from a bridging German suplex, and Adam Cole at this point did look rattled. However, he did make a bit of a comeback and managed to hit a Ushi-Goroshi for a 2 count, and the match was fast and furious, and plenty of chance, keeping the Full Sail fans interested in this match. So many counters, so many near falls. Cole nearly got the 3 counts from his last shot, Shining Wizard, but Riddle just kicked out in the last split second there. Riddle manages to nail Cole with a GTS and a wicked kick, which sends Cole to the outside, where he's comforted by undisputed teammate Roddy Strong. Riddle then nails Roddy Strong with a penalty kick on the ring apron before somersaulting his way back into the ring, only to be met by an awesome super kick from Adam Cole. That move is something that has to be seen to be believed. Fantastic super kick there. Cole covers Riddle, but the pinning attempt is actually reversed into a bro mission, causing Cole to tap out, giving Riddle the victory by submission. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one, Kieron. It was super, super fast-paced, lots of action, bell to bell, bit of outside interference from Roddy Strong, which kind of backfired. But a really good reversal at the end with the bro mission and Riddle getting the submission victory. I love this match. What about yourself?
Absolutely brilliant match. Obviously, for those that have watched Ring of Honor and other stuff outside of WWE, you'll see that these guys have had interactions before. For all those previous interactions, this has blown it out the water. There's a couple of spots in there for me, which I've got written down from rewatching earlier. There was a point in the match where Matt Riddle goes for a triple Fisherman Buster, and then Adam Cole reverses it into a Yoshi-Garushi. Honestly, just seeing how the escapability of Adam Cole in that situation was brilliant. There's also a spot in the match by Matt Riddle where he hits a GTS, a powerbomb, and then a knee to the face. Now, just a powerbomb and a GTS would kill you. But with the added knee and then for Cole to still kick out is amazing. I think those two together make magic in the ring. I look forward to seeing a lot more of that coming up to the future. I do think that match is going to have a lot of title implications, and with Riddle going over an NXT 25 coming up, you'd probably see Matt Riddle probably up there potentially against Johnny Gargano for the strap. But I guess we'll see how WWE book it. But for me, that would be a match I'd definitely watch. And again, NXT 505 is one to watch. The whole show is brilliant.
Excellent. There we go. But after the match, there was further tension between Adam Cole and Roddy Strong, with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish playing peacekeepers, trying to keep the two apart. Once again, a fantastic match. But where do you see this storyline involving Undisputed Era ending up? Definitely a lot of tension there. We've seen a lot of exclusive clips online of these four. There's a lot of tension, a lot of arguing. Are they kind of days of Undisputed Era numbered? Are we looking at a split? If so, how do you see it ending up?
So for me, I can see them kicking out one member, and obviously that member being Roddy. Obviously, Roddy was the last one to join and only came in because Fish was injured. But for me, I'd like to just see the whole group disband, not for creative writing, I think for just the superstars in general. As we spoke about earlier, I think Kyle O'Reilly, the singles run. I think Adam Cole, when he's on his own and with his mic skills and stuff, he's absolutely amazing on the mic. He's amazing in ring, and I think on his own he would probably end up on the main roster very quickly. Obviously, I want to see Undisputed Era on the main roster. I always had this dream of having the Undisputed Era versus the Shield, but obviously that's broken at the moment. But again, you've seen it with WWE. They can always make fractions come back, like you've seen with the Shield and stuff in the past.
Yeah.
So even if it's only for a temporary split, I think it'd be good for all 4 members. Look at when Roddy first came in and he was on his own. He was absolutely killing it and putting on outstanding matches. Unfortunately, always on the losing end majority of the time. But Roddy, again, is one of those guys that's been with the business so long that it might be time for him to go solo, potentially go part-time and maybe do some training stuff. He's got the knowledge for it, and maybe step back and do some stuff with the younger guys. This is just my personal opinion. But again, even singles runs for all 3 of them, or even having Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish reform as a tag team together. I think it could only make NXT's tag team division stronger. It's pretty strong as it is with the teams you've got in there, with the Forgotten Sons.
Yeah.
Obviously, War Raiders, Street Profits, and all those guys. It could only make that tag team division even stronger.
There we go. Well, Kieron, that's the end of the run. That's the end of the show, buddy. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on this episode of Wrestling with Johners. Your insight and your experience of Super Strong Style 16 from last weekend was phenomenal. And thank you very much. Hopefully we can get you back on the podcast to talk more NXT, NXT UK, and possibly some more progress in the future. But if any of my listeners want to kind of reach out to you on social media, do you have any Twitter pages or any Facebook pages or anywhere that you want to point our listeners towards your social media?
So obviously my Facebook page, you can just search my name. It's Kieron Reed. I'll pop up somewhere.
Yeah.
Want to follow me on Twitter? It's just at Kieron Reed 1791. If you want to know how to spell Kieron Reed, it's Kieron for those that aren't on the Facebook page. Obviously, people that are on your Facebook page, I'm a member on it, so they can just send me a friend request or send me a message from there.
Brilliant.
I don't do Instagram or anything, so they're the only really 2 ways you can contact me.
Superb. But there we go. Thank you very much for coming on board, and hopefully we can get you part of a future episode in the future. Next week's episode of Wrestling with Johners will include my preview of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which will take place in 2 Sundays' time. But that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to hit subscribe and shout about this podcast. Tell your friends and tell your family, and keep listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT UK, NXT and WWE updates. Like I said, I'll be back later on next week for another episode of Wrestling with Johners, covering everything NXT and WWE related. In the meantime, take care and speak to you all soon.